Thank you, Charles. And Vanessa, let's come on to you and the Clooney Foundation.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. The Clooney Foundation has been suddenly thrown into the limelight with a bit of controversy. The Amal and George Clooney Foundation for Justice, Waging Justice for Human Rights. One of the sectors of the foundation, the docket, is run by the legal director, Anya. Neistat. Let's just move on where I've highlighted part of her actual CV. So she was with Amnesty International as their senior director for research. She was the associate director for program and emergencies at Human Rights Watch. She was the chair of the board at Crisis Action. So very clearly somebody that's embedded in organizations that have a revolving door with the US State Department and intelligence agencies. And here, very recently, she had a dig at President Assad with the claim that French magistrates had issued an arrest for the Syrian president. So let's see what she said in an interview towards the end of May. The Clooney Foundation, she said in an interview, seeks criminal prosecution of Russian advocates. This was picked up by the RT, Sputnik, etc. But let's have a look at the RT version of the report on this. The Clooney Foundation are lunatics, said the Kremlin. The organization has previously proposed issuing secret warrants for media figures over alleged incitement to genocide in Ukraine. We should also bear in mind, of course, that this in a way is a spin-off from the Center of Disinformation established by the then US administration, and which led to the term disinformation terrorists, which was picked up then by the various Ukrainian NATO-managed kill lists. So basically, within the RT article, she declined to disclose the names of individuals. She wants to target explaining that we want them to travel to other countries and to be arrested there. She also makes very clear that she has a definite conflict of interest as she feels personally involved in the Ukrainian conflict, obviously on the side of Ukraine and NATO member states. So what I'm trying to point out here is a very odd sequence of events, because then what happened? There is an economic forum being organized in St. Petersburg, to which a number of Western commentators and analysts have been invited, including Judge Napolitano, who has his own YouTube channel, and Scott Ritter, who is known to most people, of course, former US Navy intelligence officer involved in putting out the declaration that there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Now, the strange thing here is that initially, so Scott Ritter, who was pulled off the plane to Russia on his way from New York to Istanbul, and from Istanbul, he would be going to St. Petersburg, and he had his passport confiscated by Homeland Security officers. At the time, Sputnik, RT, all of the Russian media put out a story that Napolitano had had same treatment. However, let's just, because that was later updated, and Napolitano said he was given a message by Ritter to warn him not to go to Russia because the sponsor of the two of them, or of the organization, had been arrested inside Russia. So let's just have a look at a part of the exchange between the two.
Plane, and suddenly three uniformed, armed Customs and Border Patrol officers came up and asked if I was, William Scott Ritter Jr. I said, yes, I am. They ushered me out of the line. Then they demanded that I give them my passport, which I complied with. And then they asked me that if this was my only travel document, do I have any other travel documents? I said, no, this is my U.S. passport. It's the passport I use to travel overseas, and I have used frequently, including to Russia. And they said, well, we're seizing it. And I said, on what authority? They said, on the orders of the United States State Department. I said, who in the State Department? They said, we don't know. I said, well, who ordered you to do this? So you obviously are, we don't know. We can't tell you. We're not authorized to tell you. They wouldn't give me a receipt for the passport. They just said, you got to contact the State Department.
And of course, they violated their own profound regulations by not giving you a receipt. They're supposed to give you a receipt so that when you sue them, the court will know who it is that took this away from you. Now you're going to have to do some investigation on your own. The State Department is huge. Was this Tony Blinken? Was this Jake Sullivan? Or was this some local functionary who didn't like something they heard you say?
So obviously, I mean, this is a violation of various amendments on freedom of speech, freedom of travel, etc. The fact that Ritter actually forgot in the fluster to take the names of the officers or to ask for a receipt for the passport is obviously going to lead to some issues, one assumes, in the future. But what's really strange is that almost simultaneously, or just after Ritter had basically announced that he had been prevented traveling, George Clooney put out this announcement on Twitter saying that in regard to recent reports about Russian journalists, someone in our foundation misspoke. I'm the son of a journalist. We at the Clooney Foundation would never go after journalists, even if we disagree with them. In fact, we have a long track record of protecting journalists. Now, people will know Clooney from his activity as Barack Obama's point man in Darfur in Sudan. If you remember, he was going to make a movie about the CIA MI6 creation, the White Helmets in Syria, etc. So he has a long history of being fairly heavily embedded with the State Department and intelligence agencies. And this caught my eye when I was flicking through the Clooney Foundation X page, sorry, not Twitter. Here they mention somebody that they're working in collaboration with, particularly on Ukrainian alleged war crimes committed, of course, by Russia, not by Ukraine. It's an organization called Truth Hounds. So I had a quick look at the website, and I do advocate everyone going to look. It's a very odd website. It reminds me of those kind of cutout websites that we used to see during the regime change war in Syria, that to me are very often basically intelligence front pages. But I had a quick look at basically who their sponsors are. You have the US State Department and you have the National Endowment for Democracy, which of course again is known as being an outreach agency for the intelligence agencies, particularly working abroad in infiltration exercises. And then let's have a look at the media companies that they work with. Of course, there you have the usual suspects, CNN, BBC, The Guardian, and then just quickly moving on to the NGOs that they work with, and you'll see again that crossover. Human Rights Watch, as I said, revolving door with the US State Department and the CIA, and of course, as I mentioned, the Clooney Foundation. And the one point that I want to make, a legal director within the foundation doesn't misspeak over a campaign of such gravitas and importance. I think that's absolute nonsense. So looking at the timing, I find it extremely odd that at this stage, Clooney suddenly decided to step in and retract this campaign of targeting journalists, both Russian and Western, who are speaking out against the war in Ukraine.
And Vanessa, this is another great example of someone that has a personal profile, a public profile, rather of being an actor and so on. But he's married to someone who's a lawyer, I believe, KC. And what I'm a bit not quite clear about was because she put her name to an article in the FT recently, along with a bunch of other KCs and judges with respect to Gaza. And so what are the games that they're playing here? Because I seem to remember her name coming up quite a lot with respect to Syria as well.
Yeah, absolutely. In the FT article, of course, what that letter actually still claims is that Hamas committed the atrocities that have been 100% debunked by analysts since October the 7th, so that they're maintaining the Hamas atrocity narrative that defends Israel, of course, and basically justifies the genocide, the ongoing genocide. But also there was an interesting article in Mondovas, which is Hebrew media, opinion media, where they actually said that the ICC arrest warrant had actually played in Netanyahu's favor. In other words, he could now play the anti-Semitic card. He could play the card that they were being victimized and put on the same level as Hamas terrorists. And actually, his popularity has increased since the ICC arrest warrant. So an interesting perspective to bring into that.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for that.